Hey everyone, this is Steve Weintraub with Collider, and I'm at the Collider studio at the Kia Telluride Supper Suite in Sundance with the folks behind Surge. First of all, congrats on being part of the festival.
Thank you so much. Yeah, nice feeling.
So I have a million questions for the two of you, but I have to start with the most generic, and I'm sorry, but everyone watching this will not have seen the movie yet. So could you sort of talk a little bit about what the movie's about?
Yeah, well, I should caveat that with it's quite impressive, but I've spent kind of 5 or 6 years with this film, and I still can't succinctly sum up what it's about.
You don't have like a log line that you've
not a consistent and concise one, no. But it's kind of about a man played by Ben called Joseph living this very kind of numb existence, which is kind of devoid of feeling and meaning and human relationships, really. And kind of circumstances come together, and there's a kind of cracking point, and he begins dismantling that life, and beginning to live on impulse and putting kind of feeling and instinct at the crux of how he operates. I mean, that sounds so abstract, but he goes in more tangible kind of physical terms. It takes him on this kind of mad, reckless journey through London over the course of kind of 48 hours, where he begins, all these kind of transgressions from his normal, very linear, boxed ways of behaviour start to happen. And they start with the small, almost imperceptible maybe, and then they grow to the kind of life-altering transgressions where life's never going to be the same again.
That's very good. That's a good...
Yeah, it got better.
I have to listen. You work constantly, and you're in that fortunate place of, I'm sure, being able to pick projects. What was it about this script that said, I need to do this?
Well, one of the things that was particularly special about this project was that it's something that kind of organically, in a way, grew between us, because Aneil and I had made a short film that Aneil wrote and directed called Beat, about 7 years ago, I think. Mm-hmm. And after that, Aneil talked to me about an idea that at that point was about a man who robbed a bank. And you were doing quite a lot of research about people who rob banks kind of impulsively without having thought a single thing about doing it before, which apparently is a phenomenon.
Yeah, some of the very early stages of me writing a kind of treatment even was coming across this research about bank robbers, which was really interesting because it kind of exploded the kind of myths that you or the preconceptions about bank robbers you have from popular culture. I'm a big fan of bank robbery films, but
by the way, why wouldn't you be?
Yeah, it's a great question. But so this research proved that firstly, like 60 or 70% of bank robbers had never committed a crime in their lives before. So they were kind of not career criminals, not hard guys, not tough guys. And secondly, they were kind of completely opposite of the kind of alpha males that you're used to from the films. They were kind of quite reticent, invisible characters in the world who, more than trying to get rich, were trying to kind of reinvent themselves. And it was a lot more about masculinity and how it's perceived. And it was kind of like real life mimicking culture in a way. How can I reinvent myself and become a man? So the earliest incarnations of this were about kind of more about masculinity, and bank robberies were at the heart of it. And then then both those things took a little bit of a backseat, and it became about a more universal exploration of what makes life meaningful, I suppose. So to answer your question, I was involved, sort of. Not really, but you sent me the script, we talked, ideas that came up sort of eventually fed back in. So I was involved the whole time, and just very much excited by what Aneil wanted to explore, really. So I've never been involved in a project quite like that, so that was wonderful.
So basically from the infancy to the finished thing.
Yeah.
Does that mean that you were invited into the editing room, or was that mean that you were like, oh no?
You weren't keeping me out, but I wouldn't have gone even if you'd...
Yeah, exactly. I definitely wasn't keeping Ben out, but for one thing, you were just incredibly busy and elsewhere and things like that. And
Well,
No.
well, the thing is, this is your feature debut, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, what was it like for you stepping in the editing room for the first time with all the footage? Were you like scared out of your mind? Were you super excited by it? Like maybe talk a little bit about that, how it all changed. Or not
Well,
at all.
in a kind of experiential sense, I wasn't so terrified because I'd actually come, even though it's my first feature film, I've come from kind of several TV projects. So right before we shot the film, I was finishing a Netflix series called Top Boy. So I was definitely used to the experience of having, terabytes and terabytes of options and having to start somewhere. But what was slightly more frightening about this project was, as you could probably tell from the answer to question number one, it's really kind of strange, esoteric kind of themes that you're exploring. And I knew, it's all very well exploring these kind of like, philosophical questions and things, but if you can't root them in reality and root them in a tangible kind of narrative that kind of makes sense of all that, then it's probably just going to be lost in a kind of haze of pretentious, bullshit. But so I think that was what was scary about it. You know what I mean? Like, can we get all this madness that we shot? And there was a lot of madness. And can there be 100 minutes or whatever at the end of it, which tells a half decent story and that you go with? Do you know what I mean? That was what was scary.
Absolutely.
Because it wasn't so.
But you were also probably looking for the tone. What exactly how is it going to be all finally put together?
Exactly, yeah. Tone was something I actually had a fairly clear sense of in my head. But yeah, I mean, you never fucking know if it's going to actually like feel as good as it, your mind's eye might feel. But yeah.
Completely. I'm a big fan of your work, and
Thank you, Steve.
And I'm curious, with a project like this, and also just in general through your career, how do you typically like to prepare for a project, and maybe using this as an example as to the way you get into a role?
I find it really hard to talk about, and I think it's different from project to project. Different projects seem to require different things. Because we were working and because the film is about somebody acting impulsively, in a sense it was just getting ready to do that. I mean, sort of getting ready to be really clear and really present. And I wanted to be like kind of, I remember like thinking I want my body to be able to move, so I didn't do a workout or anything, but I was like, I want my body to be, I want to be flexible and be, because I knew it would be there would be physical challenges. But that was really the only thing, and then we talked a bit and talked through the journey of the character. But I think because we'd been talking for so long and sharing things for so long, it just, by the time we started, we were just somehow quite ready. That's how it felt.
Yeah, I think so. And also because Ben touched upon there, because in many ways the story is about a man switching from existing in the analytical mind and the kind of noise of that into a place where he's operating on instinct kind of thing. It felt in some ways wrong to be super kind of painstaking and considered and thorough about, rehearsing scenes to death and things like that. The freshness was kind of like at the heart of the story in a way, because he was kind of having this kind of rebirth where everything was feeling, he was feeling and experiencing everything for the first time again in many ways. So that felt antithetical, I suppose, to rehearsal, to deep rehearsal process. So there was very kind of it was more discussions, and then from the moment we went into it, we were rolling. So there was something kind of live about how we went about it.
I'm fascinated by being on set and the way directors like to work and the way actors like to work. Some actors I've spoken to think that they nail it on like the first and second take. They have the most energy. And others, they treat it like, they could do 12 takes and they feel like every take is, do you know what I mean? I'm curious, how do you typically, when do you think you're like most comfortable? Does it change? And for you, how many takes do you typically like to do as a director? And does it change based on the talent or the people you're working with?
I have no idea about that. I know that if it's I know that sometimes on the first take, or sometimes even the rehearsal, you have this extraordinary rush of feeling, because it's literally like it's happening to you, because it is happening to you. You're doing it for the first time. That gets harder to recreate once you go into the second, third, fourth, however many takes you do. But it doesn't necessarily mean just because you were feeling it that it was the best, is what I have come to learn over time. So it's, and usually I could just keep going and going and going, because there's always something more you could try. Having said that, I've worked with people who 2 goes, that's it. And there's something about that that's very focusing and very puts you right in that kind of alive place which you need to be in immediately.
Completely.
Yeah, and Ben touched upon it slightly, and I did in the earlier question, but we were, because I wanted Ben or Joseph to be experiencing these things for the first time, we did certain things, like, for instance, there were some locations that Ben wouldn't see until he kind of walked into them. And there were certain characters that he came across on this journey of his that he wouldn't meet until the first take, because I'd keep them apart, kind of thing. So it was just about trying to inject as much freshness and genuine discovery into each take. So for that reason, it was a little different to other projects, because we'd always shoot immediately, So, and as Ben said, from that first take, you got sometimes you'd get these moments of genuine, just realness and madness kind of thing from that. But inevitably you wouldn't nail everything then. So, I mean, I try not to do an insane number of takes, just because I'm aware that for the most part, the freshness starts to die for actors, and that must be a horrible feeling. I mean, it's kind of, no one likes it. So I try and keep it down, but then inevitably there are those moments where you just, it just takes 10 or whatever.
I have to ask you an individual question or two, because Cloud Atlas is a masterpiece, and I just want to bring it up because I fucking love that movie.
I'm so pleased. Not many people know that film or got to see it, or so
it
it's
is
nice when people have.
The first 10-15 minutes are a little dense, and once you watch it like twice and you can kind of get it, the movie's a masterpiece.
Yeah, I'm really proud of that film, and I love the directors.
The Wachowskis are amazing. I was going to say, could you maybe share what you remember from making it, or
Well, it was the thing was that it wasn't just the Wachowskis. It was done with. They worked with Tom Tickfer, who I'd worked with on Perfume, and so that I don't think had ever been done before. When it was sort of divided in half, you'd jump from one. I mean, it happens all the time in television now, but in film, when directors, they were sharing a film basically, and so that was really. I mean, basically, it was like a kind of art film, but with a budget of a massive science fiction film or something. So it was kind of an enormous experiment, and one of the storylines, it was people speaking in an unknown language, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, really, it was really not an easy thing to sell. So I feel very proud. I had a beautiful time working on it. I don't know. It's a generic thing to say.
No, I totally. And of course, I have to ask you. All of us are obviously looking forward. Listen, I could ask you about Fargo and everything else, but I have to zero in on Bond, because I'm so excited to see what Cary has done.
It's me too.
I'm just curious, what was it like, maybe collaborating, and what do you think fans can look forward to?
Well, I think it's Daniel's last film as James Bond, so I think what they can look forward to is a kind of summing up, I guess, of all of the previous Bond films that Daniel's done. There are strands from all of the films in it kind of reaching a conclusion.
I like that. And what about working with Cary?
I really enjoyed working with Cary. I never know whether to call him Cary or Karia, and I never did, even when I was on set.
Yeah, I don't know what the right answer is, and I hope I didn't screw this up.
I just said both things, depending on how I felt on the day.
Oh, then
and no, it was great. And you know what was amazing was that he treated it, or was able to approach it. It felt to me as almost as if it were an independent film, you know. And it was quite improvisational and quite. We didn't do many takes. It was very light. Sometimes quite chaotic, but I'm very excited to see how he's constructed the final film. Yeah.
I'm so excited. I got it. On that note, I want to say, cannot wait to see the film. Seeing it Wednesday.
Great.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you,
coming in the
Stephen.
studio.
Well, thanks for
Super
having
nice to
us.
see
Yeah,
you.
appreciate
A
it.
huge thank you to Kia for being an awesome sponsor, and I hope you guys have a fantastic festival.
Oh, thank
I
you.
really appreciate that.
Thank you very
very
much.
much.
So
Enjoy the
much.
film. I
Thank
hope.
you so much.